10 years ago, there was no responsibility to protect and no international criminal court. Today, the world community is invoking both of these international entities to suspend sovereignty and to assert the powers of global governance. Is this good or bad? We'll discuss it today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on Earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it.
Well, is Muammar Gaddafi gone, or is he still with us? As of right now, no one has located him. His two of his sons have been captured, and they already are scheduled for an appearance before the International Criminal Court. Let's just go down through what's going on here, because we're moving through new territory here, to say the least. I'm talking about when you talk about responsibility to protect, you better get used to that. Now, I am very aware of this because I was sitting in the press room at UN headquarters in New York. I had press credentials at the World Summit in 2005, and I was there when Kofi Annan came out to give the press conference. The Associated Press was there, Reuters was there, all of the reporters were there. And he said, now look, I know we didn't get everything we wanted, but the glass is not always half empty. Sometimes it's half full. And then he announced, you're going to like this. The world community, the nations have agreed in our outcome statement of this World Summit to the responsibility to protect. Now, when you think about that, responsibility to protect, as soon as I heard it, I thought, uh-oh, because up till now, the United Nations had held absolutely steadfast to that the UN was not allowed to interfere in the domestic affairs of its member nations or of any nations of the world. The UN was only to arbitrate between sovereign nations. The responsibility to protect, and what it said was, if there is genocide, crimes against humanity, or war crimes, that the United Nations now has not just a right to protect, but even a responsibility to protect. Well, they have invoked responsibility to protect in Libya now. That's the reason that the United Nations voted to establish a no-fly zone. Now, the no-fly zone, the way I understand it, was supposed to allow the United Nations to actually go in and keep the Air Force down. But they've gone way beyond that, because immediately Gaddafi, understanding these things, parked his airplanes. But NATO has done more than establish a no-fly zone. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at an article right now from Tripoli, and this comes from My Way publication. This was actually published on the 20th of August. Libyan rebels say they are attacking Tripoli. And here's the way the article starts. Libyan rebels said they launched their first attack on Tripoli in coordination with NATO late Saturday. So NATO is participating in the attack. And then it goes on to say, an Associated Press reporters heard unusually heavy gunfire and explosions in the capital. The fighting erupted just hours after opposition fighters captured the key city of Zawiya nearby. Now, that's not all. Gun battles and mortar rounds were heard clearly at the hotel where foreign correspondents stay in Tripoli. NATO aircraft made heavy bombing runs after nightfall with loud explosions booming across the city. And then the article goes on to say, we planned this operation with NATO, our Arab associates, and our rebel fighters in Tripoli with commanders in Benghazi, in Mustafa Abdul Jalil, the head of the Rebel Leadership Council, told the Arab satellite channel Al Jazeera, Benghazi, hundreds of miles east of Tripoli, is the rebels' de facto capital. So what's the point? The point is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the armies of NATO, which recently has been acting like an arm of the United Nations, is in there. The world community is in there beating Gaddafi and Libya under submission. Now, maybe this is a good thing, but here's the big question. So is this what we want the United Nations doing? Taking NATO forces and going in, removing governments and replacing those governments according to their particular whim. Now, that's what we got to think about. It's really interesting when we realize what's actually going on here. So that's the responsibility to protect. I wonder, can you imagine an occasion when the responsibility to protect could be used against the United States of America? You think the U.S. could ever maybe move against illegal aliens or perhaps some other minority, and suddenly the United Nations has a vote saying we need to go into the U.S. and protect the people from their own government? Now, that's what's really happening here. That's what's going on here. Whether you want to talk about Libya, I'm sure they're contemplating it right now in Syria. You think that Mr. Bashar Assad, the head of Syria, is not looking at this real carefully? Because what they have done to Libya, now then the United Nations is passing sanctions against Syria. So, well, actually, I don't think the UN has actually passed any sanctions yet because Russia said that she will not allow it, and Russia has veto power. But we know the UN is demanding that Assad resign. The U.S. has demanded Assad resign. And so now that he's killed, 2,000 of his own people, now he will tell you he did it because they were trying to overthrow the government. But the world community is saying, oh, no, they were peaceful demonstrators, and you slaughtered them because you were trying to deny their democratic demands that they were making. So it's like the world community is learning how to get rid of governments that it does not want and to replace them with governments that it likes. And it's using this unusual tool, which was passed in 2005 in the outcome statement of the United Nations when the World Summit met there, called responsibility to protect. Now, that's not all that's going on here, however, and you need to take a look at this because there's another article entitled Libyan Rebels, ICC Negotiate Handover of Gaddafi's Son. Well, Libyan rebels are negotiating with the International Criminal Court to arrange the handover of Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, who was detained late on Sunday. Al Arabia TV reported on Monday without naming a source. The ICC in June issued arrest warrants for Gaddafi, his son, Saif al-Islam, and Libyan intelligence chief Abdullah al-Senussi on charges of crimes against humanity after the UN Security Council referred the Libyan situation to the court in February. Okay, now, let's get this picture. If you believe in world government, then you are just as happy as you can be right now. But if you don't believe in world government, if you believe in national sovereignty, you're pretty alarmed right now. I mean, if you believe in national sovereignty, you're saying, okay, so if the UN judges that a situation within the borders of a nation is not right, then they now claim the right to go in and to interfere and to protect these people against their government, even to the point of bringing in the big guns, NATO. NATO can come in and bomb the daylights out of a nation, whatever nation that may be, in order to be in submission and to remove that government from power. That's what's happening here. The world community is removing the government of Muammar Gaddafi from power. Now, I'm not a big fan of Gaddafi's, but I'm looking at the bigger picture here. Look at what's happening. The United Nations is putting these two new powers it has acquired. Number one, responsibility to protect. The number two is the International Criminal Court. You realize we've never in the history of the world had an International Criminal Court until now? This is a permanent court that is there waiting to pounce, waiting to issue a warrant for arrest, and they have the power to attack heads of state, military leaders. You can see they've already indicted, they've issued warrants for the arrest of two of Gaddafi's sons, along with his intelligence chief. They've issued a warrant for his arrest. So they've now captured at least this one son, Saif, and they are already making arrangements to ship him to The Hague in Holland in order to put him on trial there. So he's going to go on trial, and he may be in prison for the rest of his life. I don't believe that the International Criminal Court has a death penalty, but they do have life imprisonment. So it's going to be very interesting as we watch all this progress. We've already seen the International Criminal Court functioning recently with other military leaders or governmental leaders. So what does this mean to all of us? This means that every head of state is now looking over his or her shoulder. If I do this, how does that reflect on international law? So now every head of state realizes I am under the control of international law. Now, so does that mean international law has now superseded national law? Does that mean that there's no such thing anymore as independence? Even though the U.S. has a Declaration of Independence, yet in truth, are we changing the world? Are we building a new world model where there's no such thing as independence anymore, but all are interdependent and all are under the authority of international law? I don't believe in international law. I believe international law is nothing but one world government. I don't think we should have international law because you can't have international law without international law superseding national law. So that's where we find ourselves today, ladies and gentlemen. As we watch this entire process, we find ourselves in this situation where it looks like we're losing our sovereignty. I mean, articles have appeared recently that have talked to us about how that really sovereignty is no longer a right, it's really a privilege granted by the international community. We'll talk more about it when we get back.
Do you ever hear the news and know that something's just not right? Do you ever read about politics and think, what is going on? Maybe you wonder what all this means for you and me. Well, we finally have some answers. Irvin Baxter has a 12-lesson series called Understanding the End Time that has aired throughout the world on TBN and Daystar. This series contains lessons like United States discovered in the Bible, Islam and Bible prophecy, and the 7 trumpets. The Bible says in Daniel 11:33, "They that understand among the people shall instruct many." Would you like to be one who understands end-time events so you can instruct your friends and loved ones? If your answer is yes, then don't miss out on Understanding the End Time with Irvin Baxter. Call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and request your copy of Understanding the End Time.
For For years, I've been interested in Bible prophecy, but never could find the truth, until the day that I stumbled upon a radio show called Politics and Religion. Two of my questions that no one could ever answer were, who will be the Antichrist, and will Islam ever control the world? The day I listened to Politics and Religion, Irvin just happened to be talking on this subject and recommended the DVD, Will Islam Rule the World? This lesson based everything on Scripture, and it gave me answers that I'd been seeking for a long time. Get your copy of Will Islam Rule the World. Call 1-800-ENDTIME.
Tired of the same old boring TV? Tired of the not-so-reality TV? We have the answer. Tune in to the exciting show that keeps you up to date with current events. Hope, meaning, answers. That is the message that Irvin Baxter's End of the Age series represents. You can tune in every Sunday on Daystar at 10:30 p.m., Mondays on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., or tune in to TBN on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Get informed today.
Well, we actually are operating remotely today. We have a new phone system here at Politics and Religion, and I'm in preparation for going to Israel. It operates over the Internet. So it's a new technology, so we're doing some experiment. We're hoping it goes off without a hitch. Jason is actually anchoring the program for us back at the studio, and so he will be fielding your calls as they come through. We're talking today about responsibility to protect and the International Criminal Court. Now, the reason that I am so frightened by the International Criminal Court is that it actually provides for the arrest of any person on the planet, including you. Now, think about this. It provides for, if you commit genocide or crimes against humanity or war crimes, they can ask the U.S. to deliver you up for international trial. Or if you travel internationally and you go across a border of a nation who is a signatory to the International Criminal Court, they are obligated by treaty to arrest you and to deliver you if there's a warrant, an international warrant out for your arrest. You say, well, I don't have to worry about that. I've never committed genocide or a crime against humanity. Well, that's in your opinion. However, you can understand how broad this crime called genocide is. I mean, if you go to many dictionaries, including the Britannica Encyclopedia, and look up the crime genocide, here's one of the definitions you will find. To cause physical harm or mental harm against a minority, whether it's a a racial minority, a religious minority, a sexual minority. If you cause physical harm, listen close, or mental harm, you now have committed the crime of genocide. You say, now, wait a minute. I just don't believe this. I just cannot believe that you're telling me that if I say something against a group, let me give you an example. You speak against homosexuality. Now, in some countries right now, there's a prison term. Canada, there's up to a 5-year prison term in Canada. You can be fined. You can be sued. It's happened repeatedly, just north of the border in Canada. Did anybody read where in Florida a teacher just was suspended from his job after 22 years? You know what he did? He put something on Facebook against same-sex marriage. I'm not talking about Canada. I'm not talking about Norway. I'm talking about the United States of America. He put something on his private time, on his private Facebook, against same-sex marriage. There was a complaint from someone in the gay community, and the school system suspended him. I haven't heard the latest report on that, but Are you listening to me? What about freedom of speech? Well, that's with limits. There are some things you can't say. There are some freedoms that we now have to let go in favor of the common good. Oh, yeah, that's sort of like communism, isn't it? Isn't that the way they used to talk under communism, favor of the common good? Oh, by the way, if you'd like to be on the program with us today, the number to call is 877-END-TIME. Let me give you a report on our translation project. I am very excited because many people continue to give. Let me tell you where we are right now. The latest report, we are now up to $66,602 on our report. And that means we've got to have a total of $120,000 to complete this project. But I'm so excited to tell you that the translation into Hebrew is beginning now. We've got our Hebrew translator. We are so excited. And so we're working on Italian, Hebrew, French, Russian, Arabic. We've already begun all the languages, but we need to finish the budget in order to finish it. So please, now, do you understand what I'm saying to you? This Understanding End Time course explains the major prophecies of the Bible. 14 DVDs, 14 hours. Now, we realized that we had this course that we really believe God wants the whole world to hear, because the Bible says, in the last days, they that know their God will be strong and do exploits, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Well, we understand the prophecy, so we believe God directed us to establish the Understanding End Time prophecy course so that we can fulfill what God said that people who understand the end time should be doing. So now this course is available to the world. But then it dawned on us, it's not really available to the world because only 1.8 billion of the world speaks and understands English. So that means that's all that can hear it. So we begin to think about what could we do, because Jesus said, go ye therefore into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. So we decided that we should do what the United Nations does. They translate everything that they produce into the 6 major languages of the world: English, French, Spanish, Russian, Arabic, and Chinese. So we set a goal to do that. Well, once the project got started, someone called and said, I think it should be in Hebrew, and I'm willing to pay for it. Each language is costing us about $20,000 total to get the whole thing done. And so we said, well, sure, wire us the money. And he did. And so now the Hebrew project is started. And then the same individual said, besides that, I'm Italian, and I want it in Italian, and I'll pay half for that. And so he's got a $10,000 match grant on the table. So if you want to give, please give to the Italian language right now, because we've only got about $8,000 to go, and then we'll have $20,000 for the Italian. We'll be able to complete that and do the whole thing. So we are really excited about what God is making available to us right now. And but we got to raise the rest of this money. So if you're out there and you want to help us, please don't hold back. You maybe God's blessed you in a wonderful way. Maybe you can give a large amount of money to make this happen, because what's going to happen is when we get these languages, we're now doing the languages of the UN plus Hebrew plus Italian, which means when we're done that 90% of the world will be able to listen and read the material for the Understanding End Time course. These prophecies that God reserved for the end time that he wants the whole world to know. And let me tell you what's even more exciting. We're able to put this up on the internet. Once we're done, it goes up on the internet for digital download, and they can download it anywhere in the world where they have an internet connection, which, of course, is most of the world these days. So we're really excited concerning what God is doing right now. Today we're talking about the responsibility to protect and the International Criminal Court, these 2 new international powers that are available to the world government that we call the United Nations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please don't close your mind. The United Nations was founded from the beginning to be a world government. But now, with the responsibility to protect, they now have, they say, the right to come right across your border, bomb your capital like they're doing in Tripoli today. Again, I'm not here to defend Muammar Gaddafi. He may be the biggest devil on the planet. I don't know. But still, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And they've put 2 heads of state under arrest warrants in the last 2 years. This is getting to be a pattern. Al-Bashir in 2009, and now then Muammar Gaddafi, 2011. I wonder who's next. Maybe Bashar Assad is next. So do you like a world government that if they don't approve of what's going on in a nation, they can just reach out the long arm of NATO and grab that person and put that person before the International Criminal Court? As a matter of fact, they kidnapped Milosevic. The head of the government said, I can't turn him over to you. We don't have an extradition treaty. George W. Bush says, that's okay. We'll come and get him. And so the international community did, and he woke up the next morning in The Hague. The helicopter swooped in, kidnapped Milosevic, and carried him away to The Hague. He was on trial there 4 years. They never could convict him, but he died there on trial. So he was, the last 4 years of his life, he was in prison. That was as good as a life imprisonment sentence. So that's the kind of a world we're living in. It's one world government, and your Bible specifically prophesies a one world government. We want to get to the phones now. Jason, before we hit the bottom of the hour, I think we've got time for one caller. Let's go to the phones right now.
Okay, Irvin, we're going to be going to Adrian over in Alabama, listening or watching there on the internet. Adrian, you're on the air. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm from Alaska, and I have 2 questions in the book of Revelation. Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Actually, it's one question, but it's in the book of Revelation on the 5th seal. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Oh, okay. In the 5th seal, we see post-tribulation saints that are seen under the altar. And then in chapter 4, we see the 24 elders, and it seems like they're in their glorified bodies with crowns and their gowns.
Yes.
Is this before the rapture occurs?
Yes,
the tribulation saints?
Yes, it is. What it is, it's people who have already died and gone on. The Bible, the Apostle Paul teaches to be absent from the body is to be present from the Lord. He even said, I'm in a real dilemma because you need me to stay here and teach you, but it's better for me that I go on. And I would love to be in the presence of the Lord, but it's better for you that I stay here and teach you. So he knew that as soon as he left this body, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So there are millions of saints present with the Lord in spiritual form right now. And they're there waiting the day when all the saints will be caught up to be with the Lord. So that's the particular picture that you're seeing right there. Does that help?
It helps a lot. Now, what about the 24 elders? Are they in their glorified state, or they're waiting too?
Well, we know that the 24 elders, a lot of the book of Revelation is symbolic. And I'm not positive I know what the 24 elders are, but my opinion is that it's a symbol of the 12 heads of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles. And that these are the 24 elders that are demonstrated there in the book of Revelation. Adrian, we're up against the break. I hope that helps. That's my opinion. Those are a symbol of the 12 apostles and the 12 heads of the tribes of Israel. We'll be right back.
Because of our faithful partners, we're impacting millions of lives across the globe on a daily basis through our magazine, radio program, Politics and Religion, our TV show, End of the Age, and more. Every day we get emails and calls from people sharing the story of how Endtime Ministries has benefited their life and surrounding area. Misty from Tennessee says,
My favorite thing about Endtime Ministries is that you base everything you teach on Scripture. You have a genuine love for God and fulfilling the calling He has placed on your life.
Elizabeth says,
Endtime Ministries has helped me understand the times we are in, and now I lead a Bible study to help others understand.
Pastor D.G. Hargrove from Dallas says,
I feel that Irvin Baxter is an oracle of truth. God's hand is surely upon him. I am grateful for his faithfulness to God's purpose.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME and ask how you can become a part of Endtime Ministries as we fulfill the Great Commission and change the world together.
Maybe you've listened to Politics and Religion for years, and every time you hear us talk about End Time's free weekly e-newsletter, you say to yourself, today is the day I go to endtime.com and sign up. But the teacher from school calls, Junior's sick, your husband texts you a picture of the mailbox that Susie ran over while learning to back out of the driveway, and as you try to get out of the door, your boss is waiting for that detailed report that was actually due yesterday. All of a sudden, convenience is not on your side, and now the e-newsletter is the last thing on your mind. We now offer an easy-to-use feature that is perfect for those of you that have little time to spare. Just text the word End Time to the number 22828. It's that easy. Text ENDTIME to the number 22828. That's ENDTIME to the number 22828.
We're talking today about the International Criminal Court and the responsibility to protect. Now, if you want to see all this in action, listen to this article today. I've already referred to it. Let me just read one more time a couple of things that I think you definitely should pay attention to. Here it goes. Libyan rebels said they launched their first attack on Tripoli in coordination with NATO late Saturday. It goes on to say that NATO aircraft made heavy bombing runs after nightfall. So what is this? NATO's in there. You know, the rebels were almost defeated, it looked like. They were losing ground. They weren't doing well at all. Now all of a sudden the tide has turned and it looks like Gaddafi's gone. Why? Apparently NATO is a full partner now in this conflict. So NATO is serving as the world army right now. Now think about that. The Warsaw Pact, it was dissolved and the forces of the communist side was dissolved. But now then it looks like NATO is ushering us right into world government. And they're using responsibility to protect, and they're using the International Criminal Court. You're probably going to end up seeing Muammar Gaddafi before the International Criminal Court unless he can negotiate an immunity status some way. Maybe he has the power to hold out for another 6 months, and he'll say, but look, if you'll give me immunity from prosecution, I'll go ahead and surrender. Otherwise, I'm fighting on. Well, the United Nations could say, well, if we keep fighting, it's going to cost another 10,000 fatalities. We can save all those fatalities if we'll just strike a deal now. So maybe Gaddafi and his sons will get immunity somewhere in exile. Maybe there's some country that will take them and allow them to live there until the day they die. I don't know what's going to happen. But right now it looks like they're determined to actually bring Gaddafi and his sons to trial, because one paragraph here tells us that Libyan rebels are negotiating with the International Criminal Court, the ICC, to arrange the handover of Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif, who they detained late yesterday. So they're already planning on delivering these people to the world court to be placed on trial before this court of the one world governmental system. And the reason this is so important is because the Bible prophesies a world government. And it's a world government that's going to operate just like this world government here operates. Now you think about this, that's what the Bible prophesies, and that's what we're seeing implemented. We hear these harmless things. Okay, the world community agreed on responsibility to protect, and everybody says, I don't have a clue what that means. I don't care what that means. I just hope my football team wins this weekend. I mean, that's where the world is living right now. But when I was sitting at the United Nations and when Kofi Annan announced to the world that the world community had agreed on responsibility to protect, I knew immediately, there goes national sovereignty. Now the UN is claiming the right to interfere in the domestic affairs of every nation on earth. That's what's going on right now. And that's a huge sign to us that world government is further advanced than a lot of us like to believe. I mean, look at it this way. When President Obama wanted to fly bombing raids into Libya, who did he ask? Congress? No. United Nations? Yes. You're using our airplanes, our bombs, our tax dollars, but you're asking the UN for permission and not asking the U.S. Congress. I mean, our Constitution says our Congress is the one that can declare war, not the president. It's the Congress that declares war. But the president totally ignored. Now, it's not just Obama that's done it. Clinton did the same thing. George W. Bush did the same thing, because we're watching the takeover of our government by a world entity, and as long as they function within the guidelines of the United Nations, then everybody seems to be happy. That's what's going on right now. We want to get back to our callers, Jason, and so I'm going to toss it back to you now. Let's go back to the phones.
All right, we're going to be going to Rudy, who is up in Washington. Rudy, you're on the air.
Oh, Pastor Baxter, it's nice to talk to you.
Oh, nice to talk to you, Rudy.
And you know what? You did steal my thunder. I was just going to mention this last, the Libya incursion and how Obama basically just bypassed Congress altogether. And my warning for everybody, and you've touched on this many times, is to have various outlets of news. Take a little time out of your day to either go to some internet websites or just read a magazine that you normally wouldn't read. Just anything that enlightens you more than you would have normally been enlightened. And for instance, I've got an example. How many of your listeners right now, ask yourself if you heard about this? Maxine Waters, now this is more domestic than international, but I'm just trying to point out the fact that people need to expand their news outlets. Maxine Waters, congressional representative from California, over the weekend, and this is, she was on tape, she was on videotape saying this, and I'm paraphrasing, she said that anybody belonging to the Tea Party or that consider themselves a Tea Party member should go, and this is a quote, straight to hell. And I'm sure you heard that, or at least you're aware of that. And,
yeah, I did hear it.
Yeah, and that is just, that is so unacceptable on so many levels, I don't even know where to begin. So, I mean, just because a group of people think different than you do politically, you are going to say that they should go straight to hell? Was she drinking? What was she? Who knows? Or is that just her? And if it is just her, then how could she possibly be elected 11 times in Southern California as a representative for the people?
You know something, Rudy, let me break it on you here for just a moment. You're pointing out something that's so vital to all of us, and that is that news is very much controlled here in the United States of America. I was stunned. I took a tour of CNN headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was stunned as I watched how all the news was put together. Even your biggest names in news, every word they said was scripted. Every word totally controlled. What they can say, what they cannot say. I was absolutely stunned. And that's what's going on. And the big money people that control the Federal Reserve also control all of your big news outlets. And that's the reason you're saying, hey, get some alternative news sources, because if you listen to one side, then garbage in, garbage out. And that doesn't mean the other side is always responsible either. But when you balance it, at least you can start to make your own judgments and put the puzzle together. So I think you're making a huge point here, Rudy, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Pastor. I do appreciate the time.
Okay. Well, God bless you very much. And I hope you hear me clear. I don't want to produce radical demagoguery here. That's not the reason we're here. We are here to produce the truth. And that's the goal, is to produce the truth. Nothing else. Whether I'm right or wrong, that's not what's important. You know, Jesus said, except you receive a love of the truth, you will be turned over to a strong delusion and believe a lie and be damned. And, you know, this goes in whether it's politics, whether it's religion. I mean, I've seen some people that were in a denomination 35 years ago when that denomination believed one thing, and then they've stayed with that denomination for the last 35 years, and now that denomination is teaching opposite of what they started out believing, and yet they stay right with that denomination. They may say, well, I don't agree with everything, but it's my church, it's my denomination. And all the time they're being brainwashed and their minds are being changed, because you don't stay with something forever without changing to go with it. You will find ways to rationalize in order to justify what you're doing. And you, after a while, you'll hear their arguments long enough. But there comes a time when you've got to realize that you're being boiled like the proverbial frog, a little bit at a time, and you don't even realize what's happening to you. So do pick alternative news sources. Now, all of you know that I'm conservative in my leanings, but I actually listen to National Public Radio every morning. And I listen to what they're saying, and sometimes I even laugh, because what they're saying is so distorted and lopsided. I mean, I've never heard them air one broadcast questioning global warming. I've heard them hundreds of times put on broadcast, oh yeah, global warming is responsible for climate change. And if we don't pass these international climate laws, then it's going to destroy our world. The planet is at risk. I mean, I've listened to that over and over and over. And yet, when you have 31,000 scientists that signed a document saying that they do not agree that global warming is man-made, was that published? I never heard it published one time on NPR News. Not one time. Now, is that big news? 31,000 scientists? And you've got these scientists in England that wrote emails saying we've got to hide the decline and try to would you delete certain emails? And then when Freedom of Information Acts were filed, they stalled for 2 or 3 years and wouldn't send the information out, and said, well, we're not under the Freedom of Information Act because we work for NASA or the United Nations, therefore we're not under that law. Do they talk about that on the NPR? I haven't heard them.
Technology, technology, technology. I know what you're thinking. It isn't for me. Some I've heard say it's only for geeks. Well, not anymore. Digital downloading has become quite simple, so that for all of us not so up to date with technology, can do it with a breeze. Whether you're snowboarding in Alaska or climbing Mount Everest, or just simply sitting with some friends who think they know all the answers to Bible prophecy, you can now download tons of product from all your technical gadgets. Don't even ask me to name them. Go to endtime.com day or night, and in a matter of minutes, guess who looks like a genius? Your friends will be speechless. Go to www.endtime.com. That's ENDTIME.com. Click on shop and you're in business. Don't delay, download today, and become a part of the End Time Geek Club.
Death, destruction, poverty, war, disease. These are only some of the things that are ahead in the end time. Want to know more? Join us in reaching out and informing the world that over 2 billion people will die. We as a nation can't hide from this. We have to tell everyone we know about the prophesied war that will start from the river Euphrates. Call now to get your copy of World War III and spread the message that the end time is now. Call 1-800-END-TIME.
Can't get enough of politics and religion? Well, neither can we. We have some great news for all of you Bible prophecy gurus. Think no, not pre-trib, different subject, pre-show. Irvin Baxter will be teaching the End of the Age series. Here's what you do. Just log on to endtime.com/radio Monday through Friday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time and click on the live webcast button. Ta-ching! More Bible prophecy? How confusing having a favorite show. We feel your pain. Call 1-800-END-TIME for more information.
In case you are just joining us, we're discussing today the responsibility to protect and the International Criminal Court, plus NATO's full participation in the war against Muammar Gaddafi. And believe it or not, it's full participation. That's what's going on right now. So are we comfortable with NATO flying around the world and moving governments that don't fit in with the master plan of the one world government, the global governance system that's being set up right now? And never forget, it is being set up right now. You say, well, I sort of believe that having one government would be better than all of these other governments, because if we have one government and one army, then no more war, because the one army is not going to fight with itself. And you know, that sounds really good until you ask one perturbing question. What happens when the only army that's left falls under the control of Adolf Hitler? Now what do? You've destroyed your checks and balances, and you have no way to resist. Now you go into the worst tyranny the world has ever known. You say, but that won't happen. Well, the truth of the matter is, it is going to happen. It's prophesied in your Bible. The Bible calls that man the beast. That's what the Bible calls him. It calls him the Antichrist, calls him the beast. The world government that's being forced now is going to work. They're going to gain control over most all the world. And then it's going to usher in what the Bible calls the Great Tribulation. It'll be a time of persecution such as the world has never seen before. It's going to make Stalin and Mao Zedong look like kindergartners. That's what the Bible prophesies is just ahead, the greatest time of political and religious enslavement the world has ever seen. Fortunately, it only lasts for 3.5 years. But what a 3.5 years that's going to be. We want to get to all of our callers that are on hold right now, JT, so let's get going. And if they'll make their questions as succinct as possible, I'll try to keep my answers the same way. And let's get through all the callers that are waiting right now.
Okay, Irvin, we're going to be going up to Arkansas to Carolyn, who's listening there on the radio. Carolyn, you're on Politics and Religion.
Hello.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi. The question I needed to ask you was, I've been studying the end time for about 10 or 15 years real seriously, and I read a book from this Islamic man that turned into Christianity. I'm not going to say any names, but he thinks there's a connection against the Turkish because of the message in Revelation about the church of Pergamos and Satan's seat, which they were connected with Hitler back in those days, and that's where that altar was moved to. Do you have any knowledge of all this?
Well, actually, the Bible talks about Turkey in the prophecies. I don't happen to believe that the Pergamos church, that message is to Turkey today, because all of those churches were in Turkey. So all the messages were for churches that existed during John's time, and those messages were carried by John after he was released from exile. However, the Bible does say that Turkey is going to be one of the invading countries against Israel for the Battle of Armageddon. She's called Togarmah there in Ezekiel chapter number 38. Furthermore, the Bible says the Euphrates River will be dried up to make way for the kings of the east to come down against Israel for the Battle of Armageddon. Well, when the Bible talks about the Euphrates River being dried up, there's one nation that has the power to do that. In 1990, Turkey finished the building of the Ataturk Dam, and they actually stopped the flow of the Euphrates for 30 days. I still got the headline from the Indianapolis Star. Turkey to shut off flow of Euphrates for 30 days. What's that mean? That means that they have the mechanism in place at this moment. All they have to do is raise the dam, the water stops. So Turkey is going to participate with the invasion of Israel at Armageddon, and also probably going to use their power to stop the Euphrates River to facilitate the invasion. So that's what I know about Turkey.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Carolyn. Thank you very much. Back to you, JT.
All right, we're going to be sticking in Arkansas for a second while we go over to Lee. Lee, you're on Politics and Religion. Welcome.
Hello, Irvin.
Yeah, Lee, make sure you've turned your radio off, okay?
Yeah, it's off now.
Right.
I was going to say, I got two questions I want to ask. And one is on the International Court. And I've just been thinking about it, and I've been trying to check in the Bible and everything, where it says that about the Sanhedrin Court. Would that be kind of like the International Court that's back in Jesus' time?
Well, the Sanhedrin was a Jewish court, and it was actually a religious court that ruled on what was right and what was wrong in the nation of Israel. So it's not really the same, but the Sanhedrin struck terror to the hearts of Christians back in the days of Jesus and the apostles, and the same thing is going to be true. The International Criminal Court will eventually be used for all people who will not pledge allegiance to the world governmental system. So it's going to sort of be the same function, even though it's not exactly the same.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, too, is trying to just put a fear into everybody in every nation. And my second question is, in Revelations, I think it's the 17th chapter, it talks about the 7 nations and the 7 kingdoms or something, and then the 7 mountains. My question is, what are the 7 mountains?
Well, it says there that the city, the woman sits on 7 hills, and it's trying to give us the identity of this woman. Now, the Bible tells us in verse 18 of chapter 17 that the woman is a city. So this is teaching us that the city sits on 7 hills. Rome is the city of 7 hills. Okay. And she's called Mystery Babylon. Now, a mystery is something that has the spirit of Babylon, but it goes under another name. And Rome is the city of 7 hills. Go to any encyclopedia, open it up to Rome, and it'll say Rome, the city of 7 hills. And then it goes on to say, not only are there 7 hills, but then it also says, and there are 7 kings. Right. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and 1 is not yet come. Now, there had been, so far, 7 global empires from the beginning of the history of mankind. The last 5 are Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, and the Holy Roman Empire, which has just been revived. So it looks like to me that the 7 global empires from the beginning until now is what is represented there by the second meaning of those 7 heads.
Okay. I was just kind of concerned about that because I kept on checking my Bible and running my references and trying to figure out where them 7 hills was, and I kept on going back to Babylon, you know, but you answered my question when you said the mystery of Babylon, which is Rome. I appreciate that, and I thank you all for all that you're doing, and you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you very much, Lee. JT, back to you. Let's get one more caller in at least.
Okay, we'll be going up to Indiana, to Michael, listening there on the radio. Michael, you're on the air. What do you have on your mind?
Hey, I kind of changed my question. Irvin, I heard Henry Kissinger. He noted that a terrorist is anyone who does not agree with the international community. With Madeleine Albright being the chairman of the New NATO Strategic Concept, last year with the NATO Lisbon Summit. How do you perceive that kind of a comment by Henry Kissinger naming Peru a terrorist?
Michael, do you have that exact quote that Kissinger said anyone that doesn't agree with the New World Order is a terrorist? Because, you know, it was attributed to Vice President Biden that he claimed that the Tea Party people were terrorists, but then he claims he didn't say it, that someone else said he said it. So I don't know the truth of all that, but if you have that quote by Kissinger, I would love for you to forward that to me.
I'll do that. All right.
Okay.
Sure, appreciate it.
I appreciate it very much. Let's, real quickly, we've only got one left. Let's go there quick, JT.
We'll go over to Ralph there in Michigan. Ralph, you're on Politics and Religion.
Hi, Irvin. It's Ralph, and it's a pleasure to talk to you after listening to you for several years. I've been recently teaching your prophecies or your teachings, and last week was on the Four Horsemen. And I began this by teaching about Zechariah and the colors and what they represent. And then I went into what they were in the prophecy of the Revelation.
Right.
And the question came up that I didn't have an answer for, is that in Zechariah it speaks of these horses being sent out from the Lord. Well, when you get into Revelation, these are, of course, Islam, Catholicism, capitalism, and communism. And it would suggest then that the Lord sent these spirits out, and we would think specifically that Islam would be an evil spirit. So the question came up with that, and I really couldn't answer the question.
Okay, here's your answer. You remember in Revelation 16, 12 through 16, where it says there comes three spirits like frogs out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. And these are the spirits of devils working miracles to gather them down against the nation of Israel, against Jerusalem.
Yes.
Well, then if you go to Zechariah 14:2, the Lord said, I will gather all nations against Jerusalem. So in one place it says the spirits of the devil are doing it, and in another place it says God is doing it. The answer is that God sometimes uses evil because these are judgments upon mankind because of their disobedience, and therefore Satan actually becomes a tool in God's hands, and that's the reason both appear to be true.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you. Very good. Hey, nice to talk to you, Ralph. Thanks for calling. And for all of you out there, we're still on our translation project. We're at $66,000. We got to make it to 120. I'm so excited. The whole world's going to hear these prophecies that we're discussing here every day. So help us make it happen. If you'd like to contribute, call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com.
Politics and Religion is a production of Endtime Ministries. We are a daily 1-hour broadcast dedicated to bringing you the prophetic fulfillments happening every single day. If you would like to listen to archive programs, subscribe to Endtime Magazine, find a prophecy conference, order Endtime products, or subscribe to our free weekly e-newsletter, call 1-800-ENDTIME. or go to endtime.com and take advantage of everything that the website has to offer. To be a part of Endtime Ministries, partner with us and help this message go to the entire world. Endtime Ministries is a partner-supported ministry. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our loyal partners and listeners for helping make Politics and Religion and Endtime Ministries possible.
If you would like to have a copy of today's program, you can obtain it by simply calling us at 1-800-END-TIME, or you can go to our website, www.endtime.com. You can either order the physical product from there and it'll be shipped to you, or there's also a place there for you to digitally download it and you can have it within minutes and be enjoying it in the privacy of your own home. In addition to this offer, let me remind you, this is one lesson in our Understanding the End Time series. The first one is the United States in the Bible. The second one is the New World Order is world government. The third one, Islam and Bible prophecy. The fourth one, World War III. The fifth one, Israel's God-given destiny. Number 6, Israel, God's prophetic time clock. Number 7, Holy Roman Empire reborn. 8, Antichrist and the false prophet. 9, 666, Mark of the Beast. And number 10, the coming one world religion. I think a lot of you are going to want to have all 10 of these marvelous prophecy lessons. If you go through just these 10 DVDs, each of them 1 hour, you are going to know more about Bible prophecy than the average student graduating with a degree from a theological seminary. We need to know where we are right now. Jesus Christ said, I tell you these things before they come to pass, so that when they do come to pass, you might believe. So, the number to call one more time, 1-800-END-TIME, that's 1-800-363-8463, or go to endtime.com.
You can now have all 10 brand new Understanding the End Time DVDs, filmed in End Time's new cutting-edge studio with green screen technology and beautiful full-screen graphics. All 10 hours are just $155. Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now.